quote, "What I like about casinos is that they allow us to build hotels. A slot machine or a blackjack or a roulette table, they have no power. It's the non-casino stuff that gets people to come back again and again." Close quote. With us today, the man who said that and who by universal agreement reinvented Las Vegas, Steve Wynn. Shooting at the Wynn Las Vegas, Uncommon Knowledge now. Welcome to Uncommon Knowledge. I'm Peter Robinson. Wynn Resorts, the owner and operator of luxury casino resorts in the United States and China, on revenues in 2013 of $5.6 billion, net income of more than $1 billion, and a stock price that has risen over the last 5 years from roughly $37 to well over $200, more than quintupling in value. With us today, the company's founder, chairman, and chief executive officer, and by wide agreement, the man who reinvented Las Vegas, Steve Wynn. Steve, I ordinarily thank guests for joining us, but since we're shooting today not only in your hotel, but in your home, this is your villa at the Wynn Las Vegas, thank you for permitting us to join you.
I was listening to your introduction, and one thought passed through my mind: better to be lucky than smart.
Okay, new kid in town. In 1967, 25-year-old Steve Wynn arrives in Las Vegas with money from the family business, a string of bingo parlors back east. He buys a small stake in the Frontier. Steve, this town in 1967, I once heard you say that Las Vegas hotels when you got here were more like motels than real hotels. What did this town look like in those days?
There were 160,000 people. There were 8 or 9 hotels on the Strip. They were, with 1 or 2 exceptions, low-rise structures. And if they had a high-rise, it was with 300 or 400 rooms. Del Webb had built the Sahara that had 1,000 rooms. The Stardust was basically a motel with 1,400 rooms. The rest of them were 2- and 3-story structures with little small high-rises attached to them. Small casinos with 300 slot machines and 40 games and a showroom. And it was a small town, a company town.
And what brought you here in the first place? From upstate New York. You grew up in upstate New York. You were operating bingo parlors.
When my father died, and when I was a senior in school, on the table in heart surgery, and we were broke. It was my senior year at Penn. I graduated, and I had the family business in Maryland, and I had the bingo that was licensed in Maryland. And I had run it while I was a student. That's how I got my allowance. I'd go down from Philadelphia to Washington every weekend and run the bingo. And I wanted to be a developer. And because I was in a county that was adjacent to the Baltimore-Washington International Airport,
right,
I wanted to build an industrial park, and I could buy a farm for $1 million that was next to the airport, and I could get it zoned for the airport. Other people might have had a hard time, but I knew my way around the county. I thought I could get the zoning. And I didn't have any money. I was worth about $50,000 or $25,000. And I found John MacArthur of Bankers Life and Casualty and offered him half of it if he would lend me the $1 million to buy the farm. He said no. But he asked me a bunch of questions about where I'd gone to school and how was my business legal and all those sort of thing. And I left and I went back to Maryland, and 2 weeks later I got a phone call from his office saying that Mr. MacArthur, he and Getty were the 2 richest Americans at the time. He owned Bankers Life and Casualty by himself. Wanted to see me again in New York, and that he'd pay for my airfare. Well, I paid my own airfare and went up to the Plaza Hotel, and I sat with him. And in effect, he told me that the insurance company owned this land on the Strip, a closed hotel called the Last Frontier. The insurance company had been trying to sell it to get rid of it, and so far had been unsuccessful, but a group of men had come to him to lease it for a very, very big price. If he would add $5 million for a high-rise, for more rooms.
Right.
And he said that he would like to have someone in the lessee group that represented his interests. Would I like to go there? And he would arrange for me to get 2 or 3 or 4% for virtually nothing, a few $1,000s, $25,000. And he said he'd pay my way to go check it out. And I said, I'd pay my own way. And I ended up on Thanksgiving of 1965 in Las Vegas.
You're 23 years old.
23 years old, with my wife, Elaine. And I was with a friend of my father's who had arranged for me to meet MacArthur. And we started this little weekend in Palm Springs, and we were at a restaurant called Ruby's Dunes, and Sinatra was at the next table with some people.
Totally by happenstance.
By luck. And he walked over to say hello to the guy I was with. And we got introduced. He said, "What are you doing out here?" He said, "Well, we're going to Las Vegas tomorrow because Steve has been invited to join a deal for a new hotel on the Strip." Sinatra did a double take. I looked like I was about 16 years old, so did Elaine. "What hotel on the Strip?" I quickly sort of described what Mr. MacArthur was doing. And he said to her, "Where are you staying?" He said, "Well, we'll stay at the Dunes." "No, you won't. You'll stay with me. You'll stay with me at the Sands. I'll take care for you and the young people here." And the next thing you know, we're in Las Vegas, guests of Frank Sinatra, staying in a suite when everybody in the world is crowded into the Sands to get a glimpse of the Rat Pack.
But these were the classic days of the Rat Pack.
It was it. They were there. You can't really explain to people today what it was like. We went to the showroom. The Sands showroom had 500 seats. The Copa Room, where the Rat Pack worked, was a tiny nightclub.
How many seats have you got here at the Wynn Las Vegas?
Oh, 1,500 usually. Nothing. Everything's big now, but it was 500 seats.
500 seats.
Joint. We were in line. We're at the end of the line. We come to the maitre d', typical guy with the card, and we say, "Wynn, Liebert." The guy says, "Hello, Mr. Wynn. Welcome to Sands." Says to the captain, "Take them to booth 5. We get taken in. There's 497 people in that room. Right. We walk in. The older guy and the two of us, we look like his kids. And we sit in a booth in the center of the ringside. On the right is Lucille Ball, Elizabeth Taylor, and other people. On the left is Gregory and Veronique Peck and Roger Moore and his wife. Everybody in the room is somebody or a giant customer of the Sands.
Right.
They had some dancing girls like the Copa girls, and they went off stage. And without an announcement, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., Peter Lawford, and Joey Bishop walk out. The place goes nuts. Everybody is cheering because Sinatra and Martin and Davis knew everybody that was in the room.
Got it.
And so they start walking around the apron of the proscenium. "Hi, Lizzie. Hi, Lucy. Hi, Greg. Hi, Bernie. Hi, Raj." Like this kind of stuff. Sinatra says, "How do you like the seat, kid?" Everybody looks at me and say, "What mafioso's son is that?" Or whatever they think.
Right.
I mean, it was so funny, so cool. Dean Martin, Mr. Cool, Frank Sinatra, the boss, Sammy Davis, the court jester with more talent than anybody. Peter Lawford and Joey Bishop were sort of like furniture.
Steve, you're a big time businessman, but what you're telling us is you came to this, you fell in love.
I had no intention of staying. I just wanted to take my wife on a vacation. When my dad died, we never had a honeymoon.
Right.
So it was 2 years later, from 63 to 65. I figure this will be fun.
Right.
The maitre d' said to me, "When the show is over, stay in the seat." We get taken, when the showroom empties, through the back to the lounge. There's Louis Prima, Keely Smith, Sam Butera, and the witnesses on stage. 2 reserved tables. We sit down in the reserved table. 1,000 people, the casino's cramming to see this. It was an open lounge.
Right.
5 minutes later, here comes Frank and Dean and Sammy, sit next to